Are the New York Knicks the best team in the Eastern Conference? We're at the All-Star break, and an NBA head executive and head coach talked to Brian Windhorst, and you got to hear what he had to say. Before we do that, though, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We're going to be giving you Knicks news and rumor videos every single day, and we go live for every single watch party. So if you want the Knicks to win the NBA Finals, hit that sub button right now. You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green, and I wanted to touch on what an NBA executive and an Eastern Conference head coach had to say to Brian Windhorst when they were talking about the New York Knicks and where they sit in the Eastern Conference. We're at the All-Star break, and right now the Knicks are the third seed in the Eastern Conference with a 35-20 record. They are a half game back of the Boston Celtics and 6 games back of the Detroit Pistons, who are the number 1 seed in the East, and I would be shocked if that changed. They're off to a hot start at 40-13. The Knicks will actually come back after the All-Star break, and on Thursday night, they'll be playing the Detroit Pistons. You look at the Eastern Conference Championship odds right now, and the New York Knicks are number 2 in the odds, despite being third in the Eastern Conference. What's crazy to me is the Cleveland Cavaliers have the best odds to win the East. Brian Windhorst, he said he talked to an NBA head coach, an Eastern Conference head coach, and a high-ranking Eastern Conference executive. Said, I was talking to an Eastern Conference head coach the other day, and he said, quote, New York is the best team. And Windhorst was like, well, you know, but I mean. And the Eastern Conference head coach said, nope, New York is the best team. Also, Brian Windhorst said he reached out to an Eastern Conference executive who has been doing it for a long time, and that person also said New York is the best team in the Eastern Conference. We know the Knicks, for the large part of the season, have been playing like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And if you take a look at just their net rating, their offensive rating, and their defensive rating for the entirety of the season, they're a plus 6-1, meaning they outscore their opponents by 6.1 points per 100 possessions, the 4th best in the NBA. They have the 3rd best offensive rating, 118.9 points per 100 possessions, and this one actually surprised me, 112.8 defensive rating, meaning they allow 112.8 points per 100 possessions. That is the 11th best in the NBA. Anytime you're top 5, and top 11 in this one, that's going to tell you that this team is pretty good. I wanted to break this season down, though, into 3 stretches. The first 32 games for the Knicks, that 2-9 stretch that they had in late December throughout January, and then the last 12 games. In the first 32 games of the year, the Knicks were 23-9. They had the 5th best net rating, the 3rd best offensive rating, and the 16th best defensive rating. Then during that 2-9 stretch, they were one of the worst teams in the NBA. They had the 26th best net rating, 25th best offensive rating, and then 28th best defensive rating. And in the last 12 games, where they've gone 10-2, the best net rating, the 2nd best offensive rating, and the league's best defensive rating. They have responded to the adversity that they faced in late December and into January. Now, I know that there's people are going to say, Marshall, you're cherry picking stats and you're doing all this, but I just want to do an exercise that I think adds some color to the picture. If you just remove that 2-9 stretch, and I get it, removing 11 games, probably not fair. I went and I averaged out the Knicks' first 32 games and their last 12 games, so over a 44-game sample size, the Knicks have a plus 9.7 net rating. Compare that to what the standings and what the stats are right now. That would be number 2 in the NBA for the entire season. Their offensive rating during that 44-game sample size, it would be the 2nd best in the NBA, and their defensive rating during that stretch would be the 4th best in the NBA. I get it. You can't just remove those 11 games. But I think what I'm trying to say is the Knicks are closer to who we've seen in the last 12 games and who they were in the first 32 games than what we saw in that 2-9 stretch. I'm also trying to say, I think the Knicks, when they play their A-plus game, when the Knicks are at their best is just as good, if not better, than anybody else's best. When they show up, when they play their game, when they're playing that New York Knicks brand of basketball that we all love to watch, they can beat any single team on any given night. And that is why, despite the New York Knicks having a 2-9 stretch on their resume, they are top 5 in the NBA in championship odds. They had the second best odds to win the NBA title in the Eastern Conference behind the Cavs, and then 3 teams in the Western Conference. The Knicks have beat the Spurs on a big stage. The Knicks just beat the Denver Nuggets, and I'm excited to see how they match up against the Oklahoma City Thunder the rest of the way. When the Knicks play their A game, they can contend and they can beat any other team. Their A-plus game, it might just be better than anybody else's A-plus game. So I want to ask you this question. What is your confidence level in the Knicks to win the NBA Finals? Scale it from 1 to 10. 1 being you have no confidence. 10, you know it's going to happen. Sound off for me. We got to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns. We'll do that in a second. First, though, I want to let you know that this New York Knicks warm-up long-sleeve t-shirt, the blue and the black one, are on sale. You can go to chatsports.com/NYK long sleeve. Use this code LIBERTY and save yourself 30%. It's chatsports.com/NYK long sleeve, and the code is LIBERTY. I think that, I don't think it's going to be a hot take to anyone. If the New York Knicks are going to win the NBA Finals, if the Knicks are going to get to the NBA Finals and represent the Eastern Conference, it will be because Karl-Anthony Towns. The title hopes for the New York Knicks rest on the shoulders of number 32. Think about it like this. The Knicks are 8-2 when Karl-Anthony Towns scores 25 points in a game this season. When he plays at an offensive level that we all expect, and one that I'm sure he holds himself to, the Knicks are one of the best teams in the NBA. 8-2 in the 10 games he's scored 25-plus points. The problem is he's not doing that consistently enough. There are other ways that he's been affecting the game recently. We'll touch on that. But when you just look at the raw numbers, and specifically the offensive numbers, alongside efficiency, he has not been the player that he was last year when he averaged 24.4 points per game, shot 52.6% from the field, and 42% from 3. This year, the points down to 19.8. The field goal percentage down to 46.6. And the three-point percentage is down to 35.1. And despite Karl-Anthony Towns' dip in production and efficiency on the offensive end, the Knicks are right in the thick of it in the Eastern Conference. I think this graphic right here kind of represents what has happened with Karl-Anthony Towns' lack of efficiency. Last year at the rim, shot 70%. Inside 10 feet last year, nearly 61%. On catch and shoot threes last year, 46.2%. And on open three-pointers, where the closest defender was 4+ feet away from him, he knocked down those threes at nearly 43%. And then you compare those numbers to this year's numbers, and every single one of these numbers takes a nosedive. 61%, 55.1%, 35.9%, and 35.8%. The Knicks are going to need Karl-Anthony Towns to be a much more efficient player in the second half of the season and leading in to the playoffs. Shout out to my guy Shaq's on NBA. Shaq's NBA on Twitter. Awesome Knicks account. Go give him a follow. Says, to put it into perspective of how much the trailing three is dragging down Karl-Anthony Towns' three-point percentage, meaning that shot that he loves where the Knicks are on a fast break and Jalen Brunson drops it off to him at the top of the key and he launches a 24-foot plus three from the top of the key. He has not been knocking those down. He's only hitting those threes at a 23% clip on 67 shots, whereas he's shooting 45% on 64 spacing threes and 54% on 21 relocation threes, as I equate spacing to standing on the perimeter, and relocation is self-explanatory. So Karl needs to find a way to maybe take less of these trailing threes, or just hit them like he can and continue to take the shots that he is making. I do want to give him a lot of credit because in the last 11 games that he has played, where the Knicks are 10-1, and they have bounced back from that 2-9 stretch, he has been the straw that has stirred the drink. Offensive rating, 121.5. That's the best on the team. Defensive rating, 97.6. The second best on the team. A net rating of plus 23.8. That's the best on the team. While only averaging 15.5 points per game and shooting 31.6% from three. What does this mean? Karl Anthony Towns has found a way to impact winning even though his shot is not falling. He's playing better defense. He's more in tune on that side of the floor. I think he's thinking the game better on defense as well. And averaging 12.9 rebounds, he has become the best rebounder in the NBA over the last 3 weeks. Finding a way to impact the game in a winning way when the shot is not falling. So think about when the shot does start falling. I'm not asking Karl Anthony Towns to do anything he can't do. I'm just asking him to hit open threes. If he can do that, if he can get back to 40% from three, 41% from three, this team is going to be playing late into June. Show Cat some love, though. I am very critical of him because I know how talented he is, and I know how much of an impact player he can be. When he plays well, I am not afraid to tell you he's playing well. And right now, he might be actually playing the best stretch of his New York Knicks career. But there is still more he can do. Show him some love. Type those 32s. And make sure you are following me on social media. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @MarshallGreen_.